Hello and welcome to another episode in an occasional series where I see something online and decide to make it in VCV Rack using free modules. So today I'm doing the Moogerfooger, which is an analog filter pedal from the 90s. And you may have seen recently Behringer have ripped it off and brought out their own version, which is a lot cheaper because the originals go for about £600 or £700 in the UK, which is a lot of money for a filter pedal. So you've seen in the intro there the kind of sounds you can make, and that example I just got 8 filters and some LFOs and some other bits, and that's not really the best way of doing it. I thought I'd try and make a polyphonic version because it's just neater. So obviously if you put 8 channels into a poly filter, you effectively get 8 different filters. It just means you haven't got duplicate modules everywhere. So let's grab a filter, and I'm going to use the Surge one. If I can find it, this one here. And the first problem when using polyphony is you need a different value on each channel, and it can be quite hard to precisely control values on different channels. So I'm using a module here called Polyphonic 16, and what I did, if you have a look online, you can get the filter bands, basically the tunings of the filters on the original pedal. So I've got a text file somewhere. So you can see it's 200 hertz, 300, 450, etc. And I wasn't sure how to calculate the voltage that each frequency corresponds to. So what I did, which is not really the smartest way, I just used this module here called ref tone. So if I just zoom in a bit, all I did is I got a voltmeter, and then obviously if you want, I'll just drop it down an octave. So you want 200, that's 220, just reduce it a bit until you get to 200, and then you can see what the value is. I need to knock that down there. So 200 and a bit more, there you go. So you can see that's about minus 0.4 volts. So that's what I've done there. I'm just going to turn the guitar down for a second because it's got loads of noise on it. So just zoom out again. So I've set the each channel on Polyphonic here up to 8 channels. So that's on 8 channels there. Obviously, you don't want to watch me clicking through and doing each channel individually. So I'll just get rid of that. But that gives you the different bands on the filter. So the next thing we need to do is get 8 channels. So to do that, I'm going to grab another module called Polymult. You've probably seen me do this before as well. This is kind of my favourite trick. So if we set that to 8 channels as well, just reposition that slightly. That's 7, put that up to 8. So I'm going to take the output from the guitar, which is this host effects module here. I've just got a kind of amp sim running in there for a bit of guitar tone. There you go, that's that, a bit noisy. And then that gives you 8 channels there. So if I scroll across and put this into the filter, and then we need to change each channel. So if I open up the modulation fully on there and then take the output from Polyphonic, so you can see on the screen there, if I just hover the mouse over the output, you can see each channel's got a different value, and that corresponds to our frequencies for the different filters. So the next thing to do is grab a VCA, and that's behind my camera, there you go, move that out of the way. And I want to put the output into a VCA and then control this with, I think we'll do LFOs first. And to get some LFOs in phase, there's probably a better way of doing this, to be honest. But just a quick and dirty solution is to get a module called 8FO. I'll just zoom in a bit here. And I'm also going to grab a merge module. And then I'm just going to merge all the outputs into a poly cable. So I don't know why I'm just using blue and red cables today, but why not? So I want 8 channels into there, which is a bit tedious. And then I'm going to take the speed down a bit. And if I put that polyphonic output into the VCA, I'll just zoom out again. And then hopefully if we take this output and then mute the dry guitar signal, and mute that one. So you can hear there's a kind of phasiness there between the different filters. And just try turning that up a bit. And yeah, that's quite a nice effect. It's almost more like a kind of a univibe rather than filters. But the nice thing about the surge filter is you can have different filter types. So if I go to bandpass and try 12 dB maybe, it's a bit nicer. Let's just try some different resonance settings. Turn the resonance up. And yeah, that's quite nice. But the real draw with the Moogerfooger is the kind of sequencer. So it's got patterns that modulate the filter. To do that, we need an 8-track kind of gate sequencer. So I'm going to use this one here, the 8x16 gate sequencer from Count Modular. And again, I'm going to merge those into a poly cable. We'll just switch to a Mac, and don't really know what I'm doing with Macintosh yet, so bear with me a second. I'll just move that up there a bit, and then maybe zoom in a bit more again. So the way this is going to work when it's patched in is that the 1 to 8 down here are basically going to trigger the different filters, the different bands, and then moving across from left to right is going to be the time steps. So if we just draw a kind of pattern on here, so if we just go up through the bands first, all the way up to the top, and then down a bit maybe. You can kind of trigger 2 at once, but you want to avoid having too many, I think. And then maybe just back down again, see what that sounds like. And then again, I'm going to merge all these triggers into, sorry, I keep forgetting to speak into the mic. It's going to merge all these into a merge module. Merge into a merge. Absolute gibberish. Right, there we go. And I'm going to use that to control the VCA. And then we also need to clock this. This microphone's awful, sorry. So I'm going to get clocked, which is probably everyone's favourite clock in VCV. And I'm going to set that to a ×4 clock and take the tempo down a bit to 115. Then I'll take this number 1 clock output into the clock there. Then if you look at the VCA, if we just zoom in a bit there, you can see that obviously the stock VCA in VCV is polyphonic, and as that sequencer runs, you can see the different channels being triggered there. So let's see what that sounds like. And it sounds clicky and a bit rubbish because we've not used an envelope. So if I get an ADSR, I'm going to use the VCV one again, and I want to put that into the gate input. I'll just move this across a bit, and then the envelope is going to go into there. There you go, that sounded more like a Moogerfooger. And obviously you can play around with the envelope settings, so if you want a smoother thing, you can turn up the attack and give it some more release. That's a bit subtle. I like quite a sharp attack because it gives you a kind of percussive effect. You need to turn down the release as well. Let's just put it back to 24 dB. That's a bit too much resonance, a bit less. And a bit more release. And there's your classic kind of filter bank effect. I'm just going to zoom out again a bit. And then obviously you can put different patterns here in the pattern sequencer and the gate sequencer, and that'll give you different effects as well. And I'm just going to turn up the delay as well. In fact, what we need to do now is clock the delay. So I'm going to clock that like that. So that's in time. So I've got quarter on one channel, half on the other. So yeah, just zoom out again. So the real advantage of VCV compared to hardware is that we don't just need to use the sequencer here, we can use other stuff. And in fact, you can fade between different types of modulations. So if I just grab another module called, I think it's called Vector something, Vector Mixer, this one here. It's basically a four-way mixer with a kind of joystick thing in the middle. Just zoom back in. And this accepts polyphonic inputs as well. So if I take that output that's going into the VCA into input A, and then put the output back into the VCA, then if I put it right up in the corner, you'll get the same effect. But we can now mix in other things as well. So if we get our LFO merge and then put that to maybe input B, and then you can hear as I pull that dot across, it's going to mix in between. So there's a smooth modulation, and there's a sequence. I'm going to give that some drive as well, actually. And a bit more resonance. And then let's get some more stuff going on here. So I'm going to grab another LFO. I want to use the Bog Audio one. I'm going to put the output from Polycon into the volt per octave setting, which will just give us a different LFO on each channel. And then let's use a ramp output. I'll just increase the smoothing slightly. And put that into input D. That's a bit fast. So that triangle waveform will give you a kind of backward sound. And again, you can mix that with everything else. And then we've got one more slot left. So for that, I'm actually going to get a sample and hold. And again, we need a polyphonic one. So I'm going to use the super, I can't type, super sample and hold. And we need a poly trigger. So again, I'm going to duplicate this module here. And then I'm going to take the ×4 clock, put that into there. And then this will give you a clock on each channel. So you can see we've got 8 channels of clock going into the trigger input. And then we'll take the output and put that to input C. And that will give us a classic kind of sample and hold sound. And then now we can fade between all of those. And you can actually automate that as well. If I grab another LFO, let's just use the VCV one, just move this across and take the speed down a bit. And if you take the sine and put it into X position, and then we'll get another one, just duplicate that. And I need to change the speed because we don't want them both running at the same speed. And put that into the Y position. And you can see now the dot should move randomly between all 4 inputs. So that's one thing you can do. To be honest, I'm not entirely happy with the sound of that, so I'm going to try a different filter. I think the one in the intro sounded better. I'm going to try the liquid filter. So if I just swap all these inputs and outputs over, and I'll use a bandpass output and take that down and turn up the resonance, and then see what that sounds like. I think we're getting a bit of a click on the sample and hold, so you can fix that with a slew. So if I just get this module here, where's that gone? It's down there. So I'll just pull that up there. I think that was our sample and hold signal. So that goes in the input and that goes out there. And I want to take that down. And then hopefully that should sound a bit smoother. Another thing we can do is try different filter types. So if I just take the output from bandpass to low pass 4-pole and see what that sounds like. Bit more resonance maybe. So there you go, that's the version with low pass filter instead. Let's just try the resonance even further. I'm just going to delete these for a second. And we can choose the modulation we want manually. And yeah, I think that's quite a nice effect. Okay, quick bonus section. Let's just have a look at some synth sounds. So if I play a chord on here. I think that sounds quite nice. Just one thing to be aware of, I'll zoom in a bit on here. The way we're using polyphony it's not really the traditional way you'd use polyphony with a different note on each channel. So what you need to do, I've got Prodigal Son here, which is a kind of super saw oscillator. And what I've done, I've put it into a sum. So you can see the sum module there. And that's just collapsing the poly into a mono output. And then I'm putting the mono back onto 8 channels with a polymulti, which probably doesn't sound like it makes much sense. But what we need is the same thing on every channel. And if you're using polyphony in the regular way, you have a different note on each channel. And that's not going to work when it goes through the filter. So just a quick note really, if you want to patch in a synth sound, which sounds quite nice like this, let's just play that again. You just need to use these 2 modules here. You need to sum it and then mult it onto multi-channels again, which is a bit nonsensical, but that's how it works. And I've just got some extra modulation going in there. I'm using the liquid filter and I'm changing the whole kind of the bands as well. So I'm kind of shifting the whole lot. So that just gives you a bit more variation. Just turn it up a bit more. That's probably going a bit too low now. That's just coming through. That sounds quite nice. It's quite a rich sound, and that's just one oscillator. So that's what you can do with the filter bank and a VCO. So yeah, thanks for watching. Enjoy. There's a link to download the patch, by the way, in the description. I make most of my patches available to download. Thanks for watching. Bye.